Yeah. So here we go, Kalbir. Thanks for coming on. How you been?
Thank you for having me, Sat. It's been like, what, 3 years?
Has it been 3 years? Has it?
It has
Wow,
been three
unbelievable.
years.
And I remember you was there. Well, I was the first person to ever
You
interview.
were my first interview, I've got to
Yeah.
say, and I was really nervous. And I think I really appreciate the fact you've made me feel so comfortable. And I was scared about hesitating about what I should talk about, what I shouldn't talk about. Whereas now I'm a different person
Yeah.
altogether.
Well, now you don't shut up, right? So
No.
no, I remember that, and I mean, I talk enough anyway, so I think you was comfortable, and then you started talking. And that's
Yeah.
kind of how it works anyway. It's not a formal interview. There's
No.
I have no questions for you. We've just set this up,
It's a
haven't we?
conversation.
It's a
Yeah.
conversation, as I always say to everyone. But Calby, last time I met you, your book, I think, it wasn't out at the time. It was about
No.
to come out,
No.
and
Yeah.
that's what you was working on. And I remember your excitement, and I remember your book coming through the post for me.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think I read a few chapters. Then my wife took it,
Right.
and
Any reviews from her?
she enjoyed it. Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Really?
it's beside a bedside cabinet along with her other books, so she has read it all.
Right.
And it's quite a big book, isn't it? It's not a short foray into your
No.
life.
But I've had mixed emotions because some people obviously have picked it up and have had to drop it and then pick it up. Some people have picked it up and found it's an easy read and started and finished it straight away. And I think some people have found it heavy because I'm quite a light person. But then again, I think I'm quite a happy, bubbly person. But then my life got serious through the journey I went through. So that's where the seriousness comes into the chapters as well.
Yeah, you
So it was a bit heavy
yeah, you let it all
in
out, didn't
parts.
you, on the
Yeah.
pages? And since that,
So
you've been
it was,
great.
yeah. And do you know what? So I've got to say, I was so nervous. I'll never forget when I was doing my first interview, not knowing what to say, what's the right thing to say, what not to say. Even to the point when I was going to do my book launch, I wasn't sure what bits should I say, shouldn't I say? And I learned through the process. Once you start opening up and you feel comfortable, like how you made me feel comfortable in my first interview, you then just start having a conversation and you end up just opening up naturally and organically, where then people connect with you. And I think that's what the beauty of the journey has been for me, where I've gained my confidence. I remember when I first started talking and when I did my first public talk, I was stuttering, I was nervous, to the person I am today. And my last talk, which I did in March at the Hillingdon Council for Domestic Violence, at the time it was covering that subject for Women's International, I spoke so confidently. I had a family member record it for me and play it back to me. And I couldn't believe how much I've developed over the years. And even
Fantastic.
now, it doesn't bother me what subject we talk about. I'm comfortable with it, where I don't feel nervous, because I think I was a bit more nervous worrying what people are going to think of me. So
Yeah,
yeah, it's been a nice journey. It's
it's
been
been
a
quite.
great growing up journey.
Yeah, I mean, it's been definitely quite a journey for you. I mean, for people that don't know, that are watching and listening
Yeah.
to this, you wrote the book, Not Our Daughter-in-Law, right? Is that what?
Yeah, Not Our Daughter, the true story of a daughter-in-law.
Yeah.
And it was a journey about myself, my mum's and my nanny's, but more mine. And I dive into just a chapter of my parents' journey. But my mum went through domestic abuse with my father, who was an alcoholic. And then again, how society looked at divorcees back in the late 80s, early 90s. When I went through a divorce in 2009, I separated, but I went through a divorce in 2012. I found, again, I got the same judgment from the community. And for me, it was like, what's changed in 20 years? Not much.
Yeah, nothing.
So nothing. And, if there's been a little bit of progression, but not such a major progression. And again, and this is something I heard with one of the charities, ICRA, that did this talk, and the founder of the charity said, you throw women are like silk. You throw them in mud, they stain. Men are like gold. You put them in mud, it washes off. And again, it's that whole gender thing. Again, like men can be, married and divorced and go and live on their lives, which my father did. My mother had the responsibility of 4 children, a mortgage, and again, society pressure. And through that, we stopped going to a Gurdwara, we stopped hanging out with the Indian community, or weddings and functions as well, where, she went and put this front up. And again, I saw me doing the same repeat pattern 20 years later. What's
Mm,
changed? Not
it's
much.
and
So I think I was disappointed there. That's where I started writing the book.
yeah. For people that don't know, you're also dyslexic, and I remember I was speaking to you last time about this, and I said of all the things to do, Kalbir, you decided to write a book, right? You could have done a podcast, or we could talk, but you had to write a book where you obviously had, you found that a struggle because you were dyslexic, and you say you had to battle that as well. So, and you wrote such a big book as well. you just enjoy the punishment of going through that process, and so I mean that's kind of amazing as well for me, to do that, and that's but you came through it. You got the book completed because it's.
I think for me was where proving a point to myself, especially us being in that marriage. I remember being told, you're dyslexic, you're stupid, you're never going to amount to anything. And at the age of 22, I had a reading capability of a 7-year-old and 9-month child. And I had to turn that situation around. And again, hearing people talk down to me constantly got to a point where I had enough, especially coming out of that marriage. Everything that was negative about my life that people spoke down to me, I wrote it down one day and I said, I'm going to change it around. I'm going to be that change. I'm going to actually work on myself rather than pointing the finger at anybody. I literally started going, I did my GCSE English. I went back and did a creative writing course. I realized that's the area I enjoyed, and I got an A. I got an A in my creative writing in my English GCSE, and I was like, wow, I actually managed to get an A. Then I realized through doing that GCSE that actually I enjoy the creative writing. I went and did a course part-time, enjoyed that so much that I chose to write the book. Much as it was a struggle, it's developed me as a person over the years. And now I can articulate things. I'm standing up doing presentations. I used to be such a shy, much as I can talk, I was timidate to stand up on a stage and do a presentation or sit in an audience and talk. So I've overcome so many obstacles through this journey. I've actually developed as a person. I think that's something which is so beautiful that no one can take away from you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think we all grow stronger through challenges, and I think sometimes, like we just talking about my kids before we started recording, and they do PE and things like that, and they get their participation little trophies for taking part. And I'm not always happy about that, because I think, well, if you haven't won, you're going to have to try harder, right? So it's about failure. And you have to overcome failure, learn to accept failure in life. And
I think for me, I'd fallen rock bottom before I could pick myself up. And I think that's so important. So like what you said, like the younger generation keep giving these awards, but I had no award to work towards other than I need to change my situation. And also I think one thing I did have to work towards was I didn't like the way the society was speaking to me, Sat. I didn't like the way people were finger pointing, and they didn't know what happened behind closed doors, but judging me. And it's weird. Today I'm the same person I was back then, and yes, I've developed and changed as a person, but the same human being. And now when I've been to weddings and functions, and even family members that have found out what I've been through have come and stood next to me, and they're so proud of me. But why weren't you proud of me when I'd gone through that hardship? I wasn't seen as almost worthy to stand amongst them or worthy to be recognized. But today I've been recognized because I won awards for this book. When really, why was it the awards that got me recognized? Why wasn't I recognized as a human being before that? And that's one of the things I think I appreciate about you interviewing me. I was a nobody, Sat, and you interviewed me. And you took my voice out there. And to me, that means the world, because people that recognized me and understood that what message I was trying to achieve out there, took the time to listen to me, to put me on their podcast, to interview me for their blogs. They mean more to me than anything else. And once I remember I got recognized for Asia Women Award, after that, everybody came flooding in. But why didn't everybody come flooding in before that?
Yeah.
And I appreciate the journey and the struggles. And I think, again, you learn so much through them, don't you?
You do. You
become a better person.
What? Right, here we go.
Probably got me going, Sa. Yeah.
You just froze like this.
Oh, so did you?
Yeah. I was talking about awards, and last time I spoke to you, I forgot to mention that you can buy awards. Kalbir.
You? Okay, I didn't know that.
You go to certain award ceremonies if you can actually buy them. So
Oh my God,
that's
okay.
that's just a tip for you and people watching.
No, just put them out there.
Yeah, just putting it out there. And
This is what I won earlier.
yeah, got it in your
Oh,
carry
that's
bag.
and you know what? I think it's sad because the younger generation, we are kind of building them up to think without an award, we're not worthy. When really we should be able to know our self-worth and believe in ourselves as individuals. Because if I didn't believe in myself, would I have taken the patience to turn the situation around? Would I have spent all those hours of doing those courses, writing the book, taking the time to re-edit it and do everything I needed to do? You know, you've got to learn to believe in yourself than be just thinking it's all about the awards, because it's not just about the awards. It's more than that in life.
Yeah, it is funny that the people's perception of you changed when you won an award. And awards are always they're always quite funny anyway. It's a bit like saying you're the best at something, but no one's the best, are they? They're just different and circumstances, you know.
Whereas if anything, I remember the Asia Women Awards, and I'm going to be honest here, the fact I got as far as I did, I never even shared that I made the final list until the night of the awards, because I thought, I didn't think I won. Do you see what I mean? For me, getting that far was enough.
Yeah.
And when I got there, I remember saying to two women in my group, to me, you're the winners. Because I admired the work that they were doing. And all the women in my group, the like social and humanitarian category, I admired their work. And they were winners. I didn't even look at myself like that. Just to be in that room amongst them, having dinner was, you know, and obviously my ticket was, I didn't have to pay for my ticket. So I was like, oh my God, I'm in this room with these people having a gorgeous time, enjoying it. For me, it was just to absorb the environment was enough.
Yeah.
And then I remember when they called my name out, I remember the first thing I did was I said, effing hell. Then I got up because I just didn't expect to win. So I didn't go in the intentions of winning at all either.
Yeah.
Which I think was the nicest thing about it, because you know, and again, I was recording the category. I didn't think I was going to win.
Yeah. So, it's a very similar experience when I went to the Asian Media Awards the first time.
Yeah.
And I was in a room with like the BBC Asian Network, Punjabi Hit Squad, Harp Support, all these great, you know, Bobby Friction. And I was a guy that made a podcast on my dining room table.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was just like, and I got a ticket as well. And I got one for my wife. So I took her out for a free date.
Oh, but you know what it is? And like you said, you're absorbing the environment. And also if you look at it, but no, Sat, I remember when I came to your, actually getting interviewed by you, for me, I'd listened to so many of your podcasts, like I'm cleaning the house, I was doing something when I was writing the book. I remember listening to them. And I've got to say, like Suki Singapore, for me, I think she's an inspiration, amazing woman. Guess who I've got on my WhatsApp, Suk? I'm in Sat.
Wow.
Suki now today. And do you know, I've connected to her through Polly Harrod, the Sharan Project. And again, Polly, these women I listen to through your podcast, who I've inspired to not knowing I'm going to meet them one day and they're going to be part of my journey.
Yeah.
And, you know, we've connected and we all say you've interviewed us and we've connected because of you.
That's very odd, because I actually messaged Suki just the other day, yesterday I think it was, and I said, how you doing? I haven't spoken to you for a while. I go, do you want to come back on? She goes, yeah, I'm just out of the country, or she was somewhere, and she goes, I'll be back. She is. I'll be back somewhere in October, and then she's going to come back on. And a big shout out to Polly as well. And but yeah, it's such a weird thing, right? And I appreciate that. It's really nice, and I'm glad that you got so much out of them, because they're fantastic people, super intelligent. Really compassionate, and have the force within them to follow their dreams and to do something productive in life. I mean, it's fantastic, you know, and they're doing amazing, and you know, full credit to them and you. So I'm so glad that you've kind of connected with her as well. That's pretty cool.
And it was through listening to your podcast. And I remember saying to him when I met Suki up last year through Polly, we went at the V&A, and I said to her, I goes, you know, like, I've had your interviews and stuff, even your podcast. She was like, oh my God, I did that a long time ago. And again, you know, if you look at the people, how much they've evolved over, obviously now I know them, I'm friends with them, and I've seen how much, you know, from listening to that podcast years ago, from 2015 or whatever, to now 5 years later, and actually sitting across a table. Sometimes I can't believe I'm with these people, if you know what I mean. And it's a connection through your podcast, and it might be from your front living room, but you don't realize there's somebody today probably listening that's being inspired.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Through our journey of talking, and or somebody else's journey, or the other people you've interviewed, and you don't realize how you're triggering somebody's mindset, some young person, to inspire to becoming something in life.
Yeah, that's a cool story. Thank you for sharing, and makes me happy, And I mean, Suki's on Netflix now, isn't she? Or Netflix Singapore
Yeah,
or something. She do some crazy
yeah,
stuff, and we'll have to catch up with her. But that's fantastic, And for yourself now, you was kind of the new kid on the block, weren't you? When you arrived, you had a book in your
yeah,
hands. You said, "I've written this book," and you weren't
yeah,
sure how people were going to accept it or not. And
yeah.
it was quite raw. It's a raw and quite emotional book. You kind of laid
Yeah.
yourself bare. Here I am.
I did, and you know what? That was the thing that I was really scared about. Again, communities judging me, but at the same time, I learned through that process I had to build bridges with the community, even the Sikhi community. Like, I didn't, when we did Bart at home, we never went to the Gurdwara. It was just because of the way my mum got kind of cut off and ostracized. We never went to the Gurdwara. So I remember I launched my book with EY Sikh Network, and again, it was building my relationship. Building those bridges that were no longer there with communities I didn't think to build bridges with. The Sikh community, again, getting out there, doing stuff with charities. And the Sharan project is a charity that's like close to my heart, that, percentage of the book sales go to that charity. Then building, with the police force, with, thinking about the educational point of view and how you can reach the message out. And it was building bridges with all these communities that made me realize it's not just about one community. Yes, I was being judged by my own and I felt let down, but it's about educating a whole load of people and getting them together to understand in safe spaces to be able to talk about these subjects, and men and women, because men are part of the solution, not just the problem. And we've got to remember that, and I've grown in that many ways, because at the time I was just thinking, when I first started that, I thought it's just something I want to address in the Sikhi community or the Asian community. And really it was beyond that, and I needed to actually start with education, and starting to go into areas I didn't even think about going into, communities I didn't think about going into. So I mean, like last year I did a road show with the Home Office, and it was going into the communities and talking and, standing up there and sharing your did, and covered so many areas. The greatest achievement is when I meet people and they say, how much impact you've given to me or hope you've given to me. I think that's my greatest achievement for me. It's not the awards, it's not anything else. And I went to one event which I did with the West Midlands Police, and I remember there was a group of ladies when I played the short film which I've created, and Punjabi women. They were from a women's hostel. One of the girls said to me at the end, they wanted to all meet me and talk to me. And one was only 26 and she'd gone through a lot of abuse. And she said to me, she's crying her eyes out, and she said, "What will it take for me to be in your position?" And I've never broken down at any of my events. I've been very strong, confident, talk about my journey. But she got me. And I remember seeing myself in her years earlier. And I kind of thought, and I went, I don't know, I can't give you the answer. It's taken me 8 to 9 years to get here. It might take you 6, it might take you a year, but I can assure you this much, you'll be where I am today. One day you're going to be here. And I think that's what it made me realize, that how people look at you as you grow and you're inspiring someone else now through their hardships. At the time, I remember looking up to other people and thinking, like, will I be there? Will I ever will I have that good quality of life? It's taken a long time to get here, and healing process has taken a long time.
Yeah.
Through counseling, through also sharing my journey so many times and being confident about it. And when young people come up and praise you, as well as you'll get feedback, some people probably won't agree with you as well, which is fine. Take that on board. It's a learning curve, and don't argue with people. I'll say that's, if you agree to disagree, you're never going to be in a room full of people that are going to agree with you. It's fine. And it's just been a massive learning curve for me.
Yeah.
And
I think,
again, I don't know what it was,
yeah,
like what brought all these people into my life, but I'm very grateful.
I think a strength of character is an attractive feature for people.
Yeah.
So when they see someone who's battled adversity, come out the other end, and now sharing their journey, and to say, look, you don't need to be in that situation. You can get out of it. I've done it. This is how I did it. And I understand what you're going through. That's really attractive to people, especially people in the low ebb who are really low, depressed.
Yeah.
I sometimes get loads of DMs about drinking, you know,
Yeah.
and I get them all from blokes mainly, and to say, you know, how did you stop? I know what they're asking is, you know, they want to stop, right? But how did you stop? You know, oh, do you drink? Do you sometimes drink? And I said, no, I don't drink, because if I do drink, I won't stop. And so I think they want me to say, yeah, you can have the odd pint at Christmas or something, but it doesn't work that way for me anyway. And
No.
So it's about, I think people like that strength, and that's
also
what,
as well, if you look at it, I remember when you interviewed me first, you've got into your fitness as well. That's another thing I've kept up with, following you ever since. And I've seen the transformation of you from the person you were 3 years ago to the person you are today. You're constantly in your gym. You've got a home gym.
yeah.
So, you know, you found something else. So it's like, for them, obviously I can understand people see that as an inspiration. Again, you're seeing that change through your body shape as well.
Yeah.
You know, you've changed as a massively. So I think when they see that, and they're like seeing the transformation, and again, what you've said, they're asking, have you completely cut it out, or is it parts of it you've cut it out? What are you doing? And it, you know, and it inspires people to know the story and the journey and why you've done it.
Yeah. And I think when that girl came to you, she's trying to somehow get that strength from you, and I think sometimes what they want from you, and me in an extent, they want that magic bullet or that magic pill that you can give them and change things and
change everything overnight. But it doesn't happen overnight.
No, and that's
it takes time. So even if you look at it the way you've progressed over time with your gym and your muscles and your mindset and everything, it takes time. It doesn't happen overnight.
No.
And again, that's what I try to tell them. It's a healing process. Look, I have been through counseling. I went through release. So even when I left my marriage, people think you just left. No. I went through marriage counseling with him. We went through family mediation with both parents. We went through so much before I chose to walk away. I didn't just walk away. And, you know, there was still, even after leaving him, hope of wanting to work at that marriage, even considering I went through so much. People thought I just got up and left. But when they hear the joint journey and the story, they're like, God, again, I think a part of that was pulled between my mum's generation and my generation, because my mum put up with it for so many years, kept going back to my dad, wanting to work at it for the sake of the kids, the sake of the community, sake of the family, you know, and there was a part of me lost in that. But then eventually, once I gained my self-esteem and confidence, and I realized I can break away, I did it. And it's like, you know, there's that hope, like you just said, where think they can have a drink at Christmas, or they can have a pint or 2 pints. No, you need to cut the cord. You need to make that fresh start, and it has to be all or nothing. And that's when once I did it.
Yeah, it has to be all or nothing, and it's about changing your life completely, your mindset, plus also sometimes even your physical location where you live, and your circle of friends. It's such a big change, right? And there is no magic formula, unfortunately. We're sorry, it doesn't work that way, right? And it's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of failures. You know, I failed many times, right? And every failure seemed worse than the last one, because you think you're getting somewhere, and then you're dragged back and think, oh,
you got to take a couple of steps back.
Yeah, and you think, oh shit, you know, I'm back to where I started, and you blame yourself for every failure. And sometimes it's not even your own fault, right? And
no.
But so for you obviously wrote the book. The book was released, and after that, you got the awards and things, and people started to get to know you. But you felt like you needed to do more and use this platform now to spread the word, basically, right?
Yeah. And I think, you know what I realized, and I think this is where it was so nice to have, like, when I launched the book, I did it with EY Seek Network. So I had on the panel Mandy Sangera, who obviously introduced myself to yourself and everything. And then I had Polly Harrow, I had Jerry Campbell. I was going to have Pretty Girl, but she couldn't make it in the evening because it was on a Wednesday night at House of Parliament. Then we had, who else was there? Myself, Hardik Kundra, who was presenting from EY, and Caroline Goodman was meant to be there, who was one of the biggest honor-killing spectres who did the Busra case. So because I had professionals with a survivor's voice, it made it an empower panel on the evening. And I think what it taught me was education is so much more important. If you back up somebody's experience with professionals speaking on that panel, it made the audience feel more engaged. And Jerry Campbell went so far back as the 1950s to looking at honor-based cases, only Sikh honor-based cases, and he dated the ones their police forces dealt with up to date. And when he did that, I think it gave the audience such a reality check that my God, this does happen in the Sikhi community as much as we're saying it doesn't. It's a smaller percentage from other communities, but it goes on. Why are we not recognizing this? You know, and my mum could have been one of those cases. Like, you know, even I could have been one of those cases. Like, my mum was on the verge of it. I remember my dad nearly killed my mum. We as kids had to wipe blood off the side of the walls because he'd beat her that regularly badly because of how much he used to drink. And when he was intoxicated, he had no, you know, he wasn't aware of where the kids are, where we are, what are we doing, what's she doing. He just had that rage in him, and it was his way of dealing with what he had to deal with at the time. You know, and again, everybody saw it as though when she left him, it was her fault. Never found out that there was another underlining issue, the pressures he was probably under, being a father of 3 girls. He'd left his family unit to make up his marriage work with my mum. When my brother came along, the alcohol started. So my brother never really got to enjoy a dad or have a father figure who was there from the beginning because he was always drinking. So that's all my brother got to witness of him. And, you know, it's sad, and nobody came forward to ask how she was doing, or even when I went through it, what I was going through. It was always constantly finding out. I think people want to just gossip in the community, not find out what's happened or how are you feeling, how are you doing, how are you coping with it. And I realized the women before me all silent their voices just for the sake of how they looked in their community. But nobody respected these women in the community because they were broken homes and damaged goods the way they looked at them. So for me, again, I'm going through the process, and I thought, what do I have to change? And again, I broke that cycle. I chose to raise my voice and educate within the community, pair it with a charity called the Sharan Project, pair it with do talks with the West Midlands Police, you know, the Home Office, and go through educational programs to go, right, these need to be done in schools, some of these talks, sometimes with, like we did one with Birmingham Council, you know, certain areas where your voice does amount to something. And it has a bigger impact when you've got rooms full of people that are social workers, that are, you know, charities that are dealing with domestic abuse survivors and alcohol abuse survivors, or, you know, let's talk about this and make it normal. Let's create safe spaces. Once you're in a safe space, you're able to have those conversations. And like you said, once I get talking, because once I've started opening up, then people open up to me and they feel comfortable to say, actually, this went on and I never chose to recognize it. Or, you know, and I think another thing I find really hard about our community is when we see it happening, why don't we raise our voices? We silent our voices, even though we see it going on. We'll silent our voices until it's got too far. And then they'll go, yeah, I did know that was happening, but why aren't we? This is one of the things I challenge when the audience, when I'm doing any talks, what are you doing once you've heard my talk? What are we taking away from it? Because even at the launch, I said, can you pledge something? Each of you people that have been here today, what are you pledging? Don't just walk away from this event. Pledge what you're going to do as change in your home or change in your habits. Because if we can, I think that 1% of change can go a long way. You know, and that for me is far more important. And it's you know, raising the voices in different platforms. May I get paid for it, not get paid for it? For me, it's all about someone walks away from that room and they've changed their mindset. And I think that's, again, another lady I met at House of Parliament came up to me, heard my journey. She chose, her son was getting married, Sat, and she decided that she's not going to do. For me, Sagan is dowry abuse. You know, if you're asking for it, you know, if your parents are giving it to you, it's one thing. But if you're asking the girl side for, you know, we need X amount of jewelry, we need this, or we need this dinner in weddings, that's wrong. So she actually heard my story and chose, being the boy's side, the boy's mum, she spoke to the girl side and said, we don't want nothing other than just your daughter. And after the wedding, she messaged me saying, if anything, the girl side of the family found it really odd. Why am I doing this to my first son's wedding? Not asking for things, but I'm actually wanting to have a relationship with everybody. And they thought I was the weirdo in the situation. And she messaged me saying that. And I thought the fact she took on my talk, took it on board. And that again that's what for me is an achievement. That's far bigger achievement than anything else for me. And you know, the fact she took that 2 years later after hearing my talk, she sent me that email expressing that to me. That's my greatest achievement. Do you see what I mean? And for me, that's a bigger impact.
Maybe her son's thinking, come on, Mum, I could have got a bloody fridge freezer out of this. Cheers, Kalbir. Cheers, Kalbir. Her and a book. But it's quite strange because it's even like the girls' side, like you mentioned, they found that odd.
Yeah.
You know, because it's such a, you know,
they found it insulting. She said she found it really insulting. And you think the Guriala would be grateful they've got such great in-laws for their daughter, which are willing to just want their daughter as the biggest gift in their family.
Yeah, so that kind of it tells me that our culture, and it is our culture, mine and yours, you know, we're from the same culture,
Yes.
and the Punjabi culture, and we're kind of we're not kind of, we're a few years behind, right? If you think about, say, Western society with like English women,
Weddings,
like even in the 50s and 60s, they would sort of look down on a divorced woman. But that kind of, you know, and you know, it should be like the divorced woman in the community. These are like English women, right? But that kind of changed in the 70s and 80s, and it started moving on, and divorce became kind of the norm, and people they kind of understood, you know, people do separate, and it happens, and sometimes it's the best thing for people to separate. It's what we need to understand sometimes, you know. And I think we're getting there slowly.
Also, I think if you've got children involved, this is something I've come to learn from doing the talks I do, where if you're as a couple, if you're arguing and you're constantly arguing in front of your kids, you know, even if you think you're healthy and you've stayed together for 20, 30 years, your child has got 68% chance of falling into an abusive relationship because you've argued in front of them. So just as parents being aware of how you're impacting your child's mindset by the things you do as parents, you don't realize you can be bringing up a broken generation. When if you can take the time to recognize these patterns, break the cycle, understand your own behaviors rather than pointing a finger at somebody else, you know, again, like when you said about adversity, whereas though I took the time to recognize what are the things I'm not happy about myself? What do I need to work on? How can I develop as a person first before I go out and start doing all of this for everybody else or writing a book? I worked on myself for many years. And I think that's so important to do. When you work on yourself, then you can be that bit of change in the community, because the glass is full to be able to pour out, to give to somebody else. So important. And, you know, at the same time as, you know, we don't and again, I didn't realize that the 68% chance, and I'm the one out of 4 who's gone through a divorce and went through the abuse. My other siblings are all married, healthy relationships. And don't get me wrong, marriage isn't easy. Everybody has their ups and downs. That's what makes a good marriage. But you look back, at least it's a healthy one, you know, where the kids ain't being brought up broken. And I think in our one was quite bad, and it was very toxic. Where if my mum had known those statistics, would she had not left the first time, rather than going back and forwards and worrying about the community, also having the pressure of, you've got 3 daughters. If you go through a divorce, who's going to marry your daughters? That was one of her other biggest pressures. You know, and the way the community speaks to you to keep you into pressures, it's just not fair. Whereas with me, I got to that point that I stopped caring about people. I just completely stopped caring what people thought of me. And I just put myself out there. But then I've noticed, bless her, she's had the grunge of it. I remember when I did the documentary with Anne Robinson on abortion on trial, talking about gender selection abortions that go on. And my mum was in India, sir. She got phone calls from the auntie all the way from like Birmingham to India saying, we've seen your daughter on telly talking about abortion. Look at that, what she's talking about. And again, my mum was like, these people are more bothered about telling me what's going on whilst I'm on holiday in the UK, you know, again, bringing it to where she is on her doorstep again. They were more bothered about that than actually realizing what I'm talking about has been happening within that Asian community for how many years, you know, and we've had gender selection abortions for many years. You know, Punjab, north of Punjab, I saw on the news, on Punjabi news a few months back, where there's not been one girl born for 3 months in the region of Punjab. How is that possible? If it doesn't happen? That was before lockdown. And, you know, and it makes you think, how stricter has it got with lockdown, all these pressures that people are going through. So, and not just in Punjab, in the UK, you know, and again, with abortions, I know with the UK, they haven't been able to have them. They've got them as backlog. So people feel ashamed to talk about it. But when it comes to seeing someone's child on TV, they're happy to quickly pick the phone up, report it to the person. But not once did those people come up and say to my mum, we didn't know she went through this, or so-and-so's been through, let's talk about this and the hardship she's gone through. Rather, it was a gossip scene. not looking at the educational part of what I've contributed to that. That TV program wasn't just a program. It was looking at how the abortion laws in the UK have got to be changed after 50 years. When Canada brought theirs in after ours, and they've reviewed their abortion laws twice after us. We as Britain, Asians or British haven't even reviewed it once after it was put in the 60s. So we did the review in 2017 again. And again, I lobbied House of Parliament. None of these auntie I know about that. So they couldn't report it to my mom.
Yeah.
So there's been, I've gone and lobbied and done so many protests, so many things with this. They see me on TV and it came a reporting conversation, and it wasn't just one auntie, it was family ringing up my mum, to the point even my siblings did. And they said the shame I'm bringing on the family. And I was like, where's this again happening when we're educating? Because it's seen as taboo.
Do you think they sat down and watched TV and thought, this ain't the weakest link? And
God, this is some real talk.
Yeah, what you going on about? Right.
Yeah.
But the fact that they made the effort to even call your mum up, it's quite an effort to try and track her down.
I said to her, the best way to deal with it is now, whenever they come to your doorstep, anyone, maybe family or friends, you tell them, here's my number. You ring her up and have a conversation. And nobody will ring me up.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to ring me up to talk to me because they know I will give them an answer. And I've got the voice to not say, actually, and I will sit there and talk to them about it. And I will argue my case, but, without using any language or whatever, but be mature about it. Nobody wants to ring me up and talk to me, but they're happy to say it behind my back. And I think as she's learned to deal with it by saying, actually talk to her, that they've realized actually now, she's saying go to her, that they've actually stopped coming to her now eventually. They've got bored of it.
Yeah.
But it's the same thing. What's changed? Nothing.
It's that passive aggressive nature, isn't it?
And coercive controlling behavior.
Yeah, and it's such a Punjabi thing, and that's my own experience. But do you think it's a difficult one? I don't know how I'm just gonna say it. Do you think it's the women that are such a big issue? Because a lot of the times when you mention, I know we talk about patriarchy and the men, and they obviously don't help. I'm sure they don't help the situations, but it seems to be like that support between women and women seems to sometimes be lacking.
I've got to say it is. That's one thing I've realized, and I have to say this, with the group of women I've got around me, which the team Sharan, I've got to say, are lovely. And then also Asia Women Awards, the group that Pinky Lara has under her umbrella are phenomenal, and they're cheerers, they support each other. And again, Women of the Future, there's another group that I'm a part of. Those groups are professional women, game changers. They're there to generally support each other and collaborate. Outside of that, I've seen cattiness. I've seen people think if we collaborate, it's going to make their work less of value, when really, if we pair up and collaborate and support each other, we actually would get further in life, I feel. And that's the thing people need to understand. I'm not sitting here and saying I've done it, because I haven't done it all by myself. So if it wasn't for people like yourself giving me the opportunity to be on your platform, it wasn't, pairing up with charities like Sharan Project, Southall Black Sisters. I have done a bit of work with Carmen Nevada, and then I've had ICRA. These guys didn't recognise me for the work I've done on their end. My voice wouldn't be valued up to nothing. I haven't done it solely by myself, and I think that's something people need to understand. Also, with the police force going in and doing the talks, they raised, had their medias, their platform. Again, support. It wasn't done by one single person. It's a team of people that have helped me get where I am today. I haven't done it solely by myself. And I will stress that to a lot of people. Collaborate, work together, be open and honest with each other to say this is what we want to do, and be transparent. And you will get people on the way that some people will say they're going to do things. And this, and I know that, when people come and say they want to do something or they want some advice of you, they'll take it, but they never do anything with it.
All the time. Yeah.
And then also, so you'll meet people that, are too busy just hatching ideas, but never go anywhere with them. And then you've got people that are doers. And, with the doers, you'll collaborate and you'll get far with it. I've only got recognized as much as I have because I've collaborated with so many people. And I've kept humble. Don't be arrogant to think if you've got somewhere, you're someone, because you're not. As quick as it comes, it can be just going like it goes like that. So you just got to remember to just be true to yourself and remember why you started and what your values were. Always remember that. And for me, it was the change. And I'll do anything if I can continue like that.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that that women had to create organisations to help other women, it's kind of telling as well, and that they probably need to work together more. And the fact that you said, you have to stay humble. You have to, because things can go. Because I remember on my last podcast, and I stopped around 2018, I think. I never stopped it. I kind of just sort of
stepped away from it.
Stepped away, yeah. And sort of the phone stopped ringing. The messages, people coming on the show, and people that I spoke to before stopped speaking to me. And I was a little bit upset. I thought, well, and I said to my wife, so and so is not ringing me no more. And she goes, oh, but why would they? I go, what do you mean? She goes, well, you just got a show, and it doesn't mean everyone that comes on becomes you. She's a bit more practical than me, right? And so it made sense. But now, so I realized actually, you've got to have a bit of a thick skin as well.
Yeah.
You need to be humble, thick-skinned. It's bloody hard work, isn't it? This is.
Yeah. But you got to remember why you started. Also, I agree with what your wife said there, because people will come to you because if they could feel like they need something. But Sat, I know, even regardless of you putting post up with the podcast or not, even when it was your fitness, I still followed and liked, because for me, that's, a journey that I'm still following your journey, regardless of what it is. But there's different types of people out there that will stop following you. And I've noticed it myself as well, where people that want to leech onto you because they want to do something with you, then they don't never talk to you again. It's sad. It's really sad we live in a world like that. And, when we really should be there to cheer each other on, doesn't matter if, and that's the thing I'm trying to explain, even with Asian Women Award, the women under that umbrella of Pinky Lara, I can't tell you, doesn't matter when that you meet them, when you don't, they have time to talk to each other, and they're mums. That's another beauty thing I've realized. Women that are mums have other responsibilities. They have a family, they have, their husbands, they have other commitments with their careers, but when they've got time, they'll make time and everyone's more understanding that way. Just because I haven't got a family doesn't mean to say everything just resolves around what I'm doing. There's other elements to me as well. And I do have a family that I tend to spend time with. I've got, I have a full-time job. So it's understanding of balancing everything out. And 1 minute I might be the trending thing, next minute I'll be nobody. But I just hope people realize that the message I put out there has got there at least, and it's done what it's meant to do.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big thing. And that's one thing I've realized. And again, it's another thing I've noticed with when I've gone to do some talks and I've gone, you've written that book. Have you got another one coming out now? And I am working on something, but I'm not saying when or what it's going. But again, don't let people rush you to do something you don't want to do. Because you'll have people put pressure on you to say, for instance, when you took that step away and you've come back into it when it's best suited you, they want to know, well, when you're going to come back with something else. And sometimes under that pressure, you can be thinking you need to do something to keep up with the trend. And to be honest, I realized, no, when I did the first book, I did it in my own pace, at my own time. I didn't put any pressure on me. And I'm going to do the second thing in my own pace when it's the right time for me. I'm not going to put pressure on myself.
No.
I'm not going to start. Then you start falling into that whole trap again, pleasing a different type of community.
Yeah, well, exactly. No, you're right, because I get that after every show I release. So I'll put out a show and there'll be an element of people saying, oh, I love it. I love this person. But when are you going to get this so-and-so on? And I'm thinking,
or this subject on, or this subject on. Yeah.
Why haven't you got a Bangladesh person on? So I've had a lot of Bangladesh people on. And then when I get Terry Mardy came on, and Terry's so out there, right? So
I mean,
and everyone was like, well, who's this guy, right? And where's the Bangladesh people? And it's every show, and for me, it's like, well, you might like this one, but you might not like this one. And people are different, right? So my show's it's not a music show, it's a conversation show. And the conversations can be about anything, right? And they'll slowly get it. Early days yet, so but I get that all the time. And people, I'm sure, sometimes don't understand what effort and time, blood, sweat, and tears it takes to write a book. The fact to say to you, when's the next one coming out? You must be thinking, you don't know how hard it is to write a book when you're working as well, and you're doing your other
full time,
and
you got family commitments, and and that's another thing. Like, I think one of my biggest challenges has been, I'll say this, through this whole process, has been holding on a relationship as well, because of like the subjects I talk about, how it impacts on that. So, when you're in a relationship, you're having to take the time out with their family, with your family, and, you've got all that going on as well as a factor. Yeah. So, and again, there's been times when I've been in a relationship or out of a relationship. When I've been in a relationship and doing the work I'm doing, some people have found it hard, so they choose not to communicate to me. Some people find it easier. So it's like different elements of your life people don't seem to understand. Again, you can have even a family member having a health problem. You need to step away for a couple of months to, focus on them. And that was something I did when I was writing the original book, where, my dad had a heart attack in 2015. My mum fell ill in 2013 at the end of that. And I took out near enough to a year and a half, about 18 months out from putting the book to a side to focus on my parents, because they were important to me. So I think, times like that, certain life comes in between that you've got to put things aside to focus on those. But if you've got that flair, that, creativity, that, ability to create something, to do something, you'll do it in your own time. Don't allow people to put pressure on you to when you're going to do it. And I think that something is, I don't know if that comes from the 80s, early, the generation before the 90s, that we don't put that pressure on ourselves. Whereas I find that a lot, that's one of the things that younger generations ask me, where, I'm under a lot of pressure. I need to do it now, because by 21, I've got to achieve this. I never had it mapped out at 21. I didn't have it mapped out at 30.
I didn't. No, same here.
No, do you know what I'm saying? I say this, and I think that's right. When we were talking about awards and stuff, a lot of the younger generation put pressure on themselves because social media is so strong. They think that everybody's got it figured out.
Yeah.
I'm 40 now, and I'm still, there's parts of my life. Hang on, Sat. Sorry.
Can you see, guys? She's not got it figured out. She's even dropped the.
Say that again. Sorry.
I'm saying she hasn't got. She hasn't. Yeah, she hasn't got it figured out. She's dropped her earpiece out of her. She don't know what she's doing. She's 40. She don't know what she's doing.
I still don't know what I'm doing. I'm 40 this year, and you know what? Again, not married, no kids. And then again, I get that a lot. Like, when are you going to get married again? When are you going to have kids? Or have you thought about this? And I've had a friend recently tell me she's pregnant. She was like, God, I just found I'm pregnant and I'm 40. Do you think it's a good thing to do? And I was like, there's no right way in anything in life. You can map it out. You can even get married at, say, 21. You can have problems years after having kids, trying to have kids. Everyone's got a different journey, and we can't compare our journey to anybody else's. All we can do is live in ours.
Yeah.
And accept the situation we're in.
And I think that's kind of, it's probably changed from the first time I spoke to you till now. I think social media's become a different animal now, right? And people do look
so powerful.
It's so powerful. And I sometimes worry about people's mental health, because I can, even for me, I'm quite controlled and settled now, and I kind of know myself. Disciplined, yeah. And even for me, when I look at Instagram and I see other fitness people, I think, look, that guy, man, he's got like 8% body fat, but I don't realize that guy's probably taking some steroids or doing all sorts, and it could be anything. And you can't compare yourself to someone else. You can't do it, honestly.
Somebody else,
you cannot. No. Because
that's what I mean. So I can be sitting there thinking, well, all my friends majority of my friends are all from school, married, all got kids. Most of them, I met with one yesterday. He's contemplating having a fourth child. I haven't even got the first child.
Yeah.
So, and I don't compare my journey. I always say, your guesstimate is in your hand. My guesstimate's in my hand. And what's going to come for me is going to come in my path. And when the time's right, I settle down, I don't settle down, I don't know. If I end up having kids, I don't end up having kids, it's fine. There's other options I can explore of adoption. It's serva to me. And I think I'm a person today that I explore other ideas. I don't think of it looking at it just the way our community says, you have to be married, you have to have a kid like this. I can, if I choose to have a child, I can go and get sperm donor if I wanted a child of my own. I have had those discussions with my family. I've said about adoption. which, don't get me wrong, there's family members that would agree and don't agree, disagree as well. But there's options in life, I think I've realized.
Yeah.
There's not just the way that one rule of doing it, going through A and B and C. We can go through other avenues. I've learned in life as I've got older and I've become more confident in my own skin.
Yeah, definitely.
So I think, I can go into a relationship, and let's see if we got into a relationship. I got into a relationship with someone and I said, look, rather than having a child of our own, let's adopt. We could do that as a couple. I can do that on my own. It doesn't have to be set. I'm not looking at myself as a clicking clock. I'm going to enjoy life, and whatever comes my way, it'll happen when it's meant to happen.
Yeah. I mean, speaking to you, you definitely you seem a different person. The old Kalbir's still there, that kind, bubbly person still there. But there seems to be a sort of a ring of steel around you at the moment. You seem like nothing really. You don't let people affect you as much, and you're not so worried about other people's opinions. Or
it has taken me time, Sat. Do you know what I'm going to say? I was in a long-term relationship, and I think when I came out of that relationship, that's where I felt a bit of a pressure. That was a couple of years back. I felt pressure where marriage was on the card, and I made a choice to walk out of that relationship. And again, I remember family telling to me that knew about the relationship said to me, "But you're 38." And I said, yeah, but would I want to be unhappy for the rest of my life, or would I want to be with the right person? And to me, being with the right person and being content and happy is far more important than being with the wrong person. And again, I'm very much private, where when it comes to my relationships, I don't share it on social media. So nobody knows if I'm in a relationship or I'm not in a relationship, because I continue doing my work and keeping one element of my life, which is private, is if I'm in a relationship outside of social media, that does not go on social. And which I'm glad I've learned to do that, because
that's good. Yeah.
And I think it's healthy as well. And also it's healthy in a way where, I'm giving so much of myself away anyway by talking so openly. There's an element I've got to hold back for myself. And that's one element I do. And I've learned to grow. And again, I've dated great men, Sat. I've dated great men that have contributed to this journey, who contributed to the person I am today. And, those men have supported me when I was launching this book. They were the men that, agreed with me, maybe they disagreed or whatever. They've contributed to this journey. So, that I'm not going to sit there and bash men, because, there's great men out there. And again, if it wasn't for my mamaji pulling me out of my marriage and being my support network, being my strength at the time, would I be where I am today? And both my mamaji, my older G, Palmjit mama and Charlie mamaji, them two have been my strength. Then I've had the great men I've dated, and once I launched my book, I was dating a great guy who encouraged me, went along and supported me, never was in the scene, but has always been my backbone. So I'm not going to sit there and say, I'm not going to be man bashing, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And again, Jerry Campbell's a great person who inspires me. He's my mentor. He was on my panel. Tony Parker, who's the West Midlands police officer who helped introduce the dairy abuse to the West Midlands police after my talk. These are all men that have contributed. Yourself, who was the first platform I spoke on. I've had other people that have interviewed me. And I think it's so important to celebrate that. And to realize that as much as we've gone through hardship, and I've got to say that when we're talking about, when you were saying earlier about women, sometimes we can bash each other up. Men have been a great support to me. No one's and I think obviously men don't have that cattiness in them. That's been the best part of anyone that's interviewed me that have been male, anyone that's given me support has been male, have genuinely, it's black and white with men. You know where you stand with men. With women, it can be a bit with our hormones and almost like not knowing if they're coming or going. Has been a challenge. There's been moments, catty moments here and there I've seen when I was first starting out. And I think I learned to just step away from things, was my way of dealing with it, just step away from things. But then I've been blessed on the journey where then eventually I've had a group of women that, have supported me, have been genuine.
Yeah.
And, and thanks to those women that support me genuinely, and I will say, there's a load of women I'm grateful, and they inspire me now to be a better person, and I look up to those women. So, it's a learning curve.
It is. It's always a learning curve. It never ends. There's not a point where we know everything now. We're okay, and we move on with our life. But life is a continuous learning curve.
Sorry, I think you must have lost me. There you
Yeah,
go.
yeah.
Got me back.
Did you press a button or something there? Did you?
No. I had a call coming in.
Ah, you mentioned, you was in a relationship, and do you ever get in disagreements? And I'm wondering if he's thinking, she's not putting me in a bloody book, is she?
Do you know, that's the first thing I get asked, actually. The funniest thing is, I'm not in a relationship right now, but I was in a relationship when I was in one. And I remember the first thing he said to me, this is my ex, I'm going to talk about now here. And he said to me, whatever you do, just don't write a book about me. And they fear about that. And I'm like, you know what? I wouldn't write a book about anybody else because I've got so many more stories to share from my own family and my own journey that I haven't got anything to write about. And that's what I'm trying to say. The men I've dated afterward have been so great. They stored my faith in men in different ways. They've made me the woman I am today, and they've contributed to this journey that I am, the person I am today.
Yeah.
And, and again, with this ex of mine, I'm in contact with him and he's a friend.
Yeah.
And he's to me, there's a certain quality I find attractive in every person I've dated afterward, that these men, may I be in contact or not, I'm not in contact with anybody else bar him. And he's one person that inspires me a lot, and time to time checks in on me and says, how you doing? And again, you can have healthy relationships. It's okay to, if you are talking to these exes, it's fine, because the healthy ones, it's like when you're in a relationship, they either make you or they break you, don't they? I had that one relationship that broke me and tore me apart. But after that, the relationships I've had, I've met some wonderful men that have made me into a better person, a better version of me today. And they've contributed, and I'm not going to knock them down. So yeah, it's been a good journey. But I think the challenging thing I found is, more than the men have accepted me for who I am. It's their mums, especially if they're Punjabi backgrounds. I've dated out of race, and that's something I'm proud to say I have dated out of race. And, my family have known that as well. And I've been very open with my family. I've always said, if I date someone, I want to have a living relationship. If I want to explore these ideas. And I've said that to them, and my family have said, look, what you've been through, as long as you're happy as a human being, that matters more to us. And you meet the right human to connect with and have as a life partner. We'd rather have that than you get with the wrong person. So for me, when I've had these conversations, so when I've dated a Punjabi guy, I've always found the Punjabi mums have not accepted me. Punjabi mums have not accepted me. They found it very difficult. And one relationship where I was dating a guy, and it was sad because when I met his mum, eventually we got talking. First time she met me, she said to me, like, she didn't know I was a divorcee. It was like you ran to get the plate of biscuits, the thali and everything. Be like this, come on in, inviting me, running around me. As soon as he's told her I'm married and divorced, I went round to the house to meet him again, and I knocked on the door. Her foot was on the door, sat, barring me from coming in. And it was very much where, you're not healthy for my son because you're married and divorced, and also the stuff you do. Like, how dare you? And, and I think they fear someone with education. They fear someone who's either been there. They fear that. And I think that's been one of my biggest challenges in life in the last 10 years. If I've dated an Asian guy, up and up Punjabi guy, I'm yet to meet a Punjabi man that the men accept me, but once their mothers find out, they're torn between their mothers and should they continue in a relationship with me, is one of the biggest things I have found. And that, and them having influences over them, then takes me back to, and it has taken me back, one especially in 2000 and one of the relationships earlier on, like in, when I first separated, like I remember when his mom found out, and she was there very much where like, well, no, and also to the point, one relationship had asked me, you have to stop the book. It's either stop doing the work you're doing and it's you and me as a relationship. And I was like, there's no way. I've worked so hard to get me here. And for me, this is my seva, the way I look at it. And, because, there's points where I'm going out and I am doing things and I'm not getting paid for it, but I see it as seva. So I'm not going to stop doing something where I've come into my purpose in life. And that's a passion for me. And if I give this up for the sake of a person, and the right person will come along who will accept me for who I am, will love me for who I am and appreciate my voice. But it's shocking. You meet the men that are strong enough to accept you for who you are, And I have dated more men that have not been married and divorced, but not married before, then going, it's not I've got divorces because I'm a divorcee. I've ended up meeting guys that are actually single guys that have actually never been married, never gone through a divorce, or haven't got kids. And they found me more attractive because they're like, you actually are a woman who knows her own mind. But then it's sad that they haven't got the strength to stand up. There's something there that's lacking in our community. I feel there is something there.
I was going to say they probably say that to you when you're out together until they get home.
Yeah.
But then they don't want to hear your mind or your voice, and then you.
Yeah. Because then it comes into the family unit, and I think that's where we've got a generation which are towing, and also I think that's something we've come to learn. Like when we said, there's people don't talk about men's mental health. Also, we don't seem to understand that how men are pulled between, how men are pulled between their family and us. How they're pulled between their family situation and us, as in. Because there's that one thing, I don't know, I've paid attention in the last few years, what I've noticed. Some families have codependence on their sons, helping them pay mortgages or helping them financially with things, or, their parents have, depending on whatever their family situations are, they're depending on their sons to help them out with a lot of things. It could be because they're older parents that are not well. So because of the pressures of those, and then they're meeting someone, they need to find someone that fits into a family unit, you've got that pressure where a lot of youngsters now want to live separate. They don't want to live with in-laws. There's that as well, which, and I think for me, when I've dated, because of the experience I've gone through, and I can't blame what happened in my past to somebody else's parents. I'm willing to accept to meet this person's parents, to know, will they take me for the person I am, and I'll take them for the people they are. And, I'm not going to judge someone's parents for something that happened in the past to me. I want to, for my own experience with those people's that person's parents, to be like, right, do I want to live with in-laws? Do I not want to live with in-laws? That comes into it. And I'm not towing with the idea of completely saying I don't want to live with in-laws, because I can't blame, like I said, someone's parents for something that's happened in the past. But I've noticed once you do come to the point of meeting someone's parents, especially Apne Punjabi parents, I do get judged, I find, once they know my journey, or they feel intimidated, and they're like, well, that whole thing that comes back to it again. I mean, one mother I know that went and found out from a pundit. And again, I don't know if you watched the Indian Matchmaker on the Netflix program, where there was this matchmaker who was going to pundits to find out if the couple are going to be compatible, and if the journey's going to be made. And again, I felt where this one mom, an ex of mine, whose mom went and checked through a pundit, if we're compatible. And again, she came back saying she's very strong-minded, she might be jiddi, she might be, and she has a mind of her own. And again, she was very intimidated when she found out this.
Shocking, you've got a mind of your own.
Yeah.
How can that be a bad thing?
Yeah. And then again, it was where, like, she asked the pundit, she knew that I was married and divorced, asked the pundit, and the pundit went, did you know it was her fault the marriage failed? And again, that typical thing, somebody says about you, and then somebody runs with that idea of you. And I think that disappointed me, because it made me think, well, hang on. And again, when I watched the Netflix program, the Indian Matchmaker, and I thought, oh, here we go, typical, and why don't people take you on for face value, or, get to know you, take the time to know who you are as a person? Because the person you were 2 years ago to the person you are today are completely different. It's like you've paid attention to know that you feel like, yeah, I'm happy and bubbly, but I think I was a bit naive even 3 years ago to the person I am today.
We all can be in certain situations. I mean, do you believe in all that pundit business?
No,
I think it's all bullshit. And
I do.
They just take money, man, of people.
Money. It's a money making business, I think, sometimes. And I'm sorry, the way I look at it, come on, we're in a pandemic. Which one of these pundits predicted this pandemic happening?
Yeah, exactly.
Sir?
Yeah,
come
exactly.
on.
Yeah. When's it going to end?
Which one of these pundits came forward and said, this pandemic is going to happen, mentally start preparing for it? So that's, I mean, as soon as when you see these things, like, these people are coming up, and again, they're belittling women.
Yeah.
It's always the woman's fault in their kind of thing. Again, a woman with a voice, it's her fault.
Was it a bloke? Was it a bloke bandit? Do you know?
Yeah, it was a bloke.
Shocking.
So then for me, it was like, there you go again. It's a cultural thing where, again, something that needs to be addressed, where why is it if a woman's marriage has failed, she seemed like she's not worthy to join another family? And I think that's another thing to think about. And even like when you said about earlier, women are not supporting women. A lot of honor-based cases, the perpetrators are women, are the mothers or the mother-in-laws.
Yeah.
And then again, if you got like, I remember when I met, now I'll use an example of another one of my exes. His mom had been divorced twice and married for the third time. So this is 3 marriages now. And then you'd think this person would have understood me being divorced once and accepted me. She said, I can't have you marry my son because you're a divorcee. And this is, again, judgment coming from someone who's been married and divorced twice.
Yeah.
So, women are women's worst enemy, I find, through most of this process I've seen. And I think it's sad because when you take a look, when really, if we actually took the time to empathize with each other, understand each other's journey truly, genuinely from the heart, and take the time to recognize and go, right, okay, how can we help? How can we build each other up? What went wrong there? Rather than judging each other, I think you'll build a greater, the future generation will be built on a lot more solid foundation, I think. We recognize certain things.
I mean, talking about the future for yourself as well now, you said you're working on something. I don't want you to tell me, because I think you started telling me and then I thought, oh, shut up, Kalbir. Don't tell him.
It's my nanny story. Everyone's had a story. When I went diving into my book, I discovered, so I didn't even know I had a second bua, which I discovered through the book. I didn't know what went on, scandals went on in my dad's side of the family and the scandals that went on my mum's side of the family. How many people that I didn't know. And again, when I talked about domestic abuse, how many people went through abuse in different parts in their relationships or within my family, how many people had abortion within my family. I discovered so much. So there was a couple of people that so inspired me, and it's their stories I'm going to share. My nanny is one of the women that have inspired me a great deal. I'm a grandchild of my nanny's name's Amarjit Kaur Gossel. And she was in the Indian partition in 1947 out there. She was in a refugee camp for 3 months in Pakistan side. So, she's got a story. You got my mum who's an immigrant, who came for the better quality of life in England, and she's got a story with my dad. I've only shared 1 chapter in that book. So, then I found out my Vaddi Bua was married to a French guy who I thought was a white guy. And she's got a story. My younger Bua, who I didn't even know until 2015, has got a story. There's women in my family that I've actually learned so much about through writing the first original book, have got stories that I want to share their journeys. So I think, and it'd be one of the women, I'm not going to say who, be one of the women in my family that I'm going to share their story, who I'm inspired by. And I want to continue sharing these women's stories that have chosen to not share them because of out of shame, because of, what the community's going to think. And I want to be the voice for these women to share their journeys. And they're women that are strong, resilient, who inspire me on my journey.
Yeah. I mean, even if you look at the immigration of our community, Punjabi, it's quite clear that the backbone of the community was the women. Yeah. If I'm not talking just financially, because obviously the men went out to work, but the women, that social cohesion they made by working with each other and looking after the children, taking them to school, getting them that backbone. Without all that, we wouldn't have survived this long.
No.
There's one thing getting money coming.
But if you look at it with the Punjabi community first, but even if you look at it when the men were working like even 7 days a week, some people were, they weren't even having a day off.
Exactly.
So the women had to do all the housework, look after, bring up the kids, and with their own struggles. Again, when there was a wedding in the household, women used to pull together to do all the family cooking for a wedding. And again, whatever leftover food they had, they'd share it on the road. And again, I've said this in my book, the women got known as these master chefs through the food they'd share on the road. The Indian curries started on our roads. The smell of dal was down the roads. Then went on to going on to now you got like, but the first Punjab restaurant in London, in Leicester Square, that was in the 1940s. But if you look back at it, when all the immigration communities came, Punjabi people used to get together, and it was that whole biar of like one family set up. When my dad's side of the family came to England, my dad, my granddad came, my granddad's brothers came. They all lived in one house. They're working around the clock. And once they set up the one family, then they bought a house for the next family. They did it together as that pyar that we haven't got today, that, they'd help set each other up. They didn't just abandon family. So until the next family wasn't set up, they didn't go and buy something else. They bought houses for each other, and their money was going into one pot. And that was something I learned, because I remember my dad, when I got talking to him, and he said, he goes, that's how my dad came in the 60s. He goes, and my chacha bought a house. So he goes, once they set up one family, they set the next family up, then they set my parents up. And eventually they were going on their wives over, their kids over. They came step by processes. They didn't just land on their feet overnight. Yeah. So I think, celebrating that, the struggles, and again, after the partition, they had nothing. They lost everything. My family, from the partition, they were on the Pakistan side. They lost everything to go to Punjab, and they didn't know where the next story about what's going on with COVID. We're still lucky we've got a government who's put things in place so people are getting something. They had nothing. It was overnight. That line was put in overnight in that partition, and people were killing people. Again, a lot of women's voices weren't celebrated in partition. It was always the man's voice. So hearing my nanny and hearing her journey and how they struggled in this refuge camp for 3 months as women, when they packed up their life and what they packed up and what they had to come across, and it took them 3 months to cross the border, which I crossed that same border in 2010, Sat. And I crossed it in a matter of hours, couple of hours, by foot. This is the difference. And, because of there's policies, there's procedures put into place, I've got a British passport, which allows me to have the freedom to go back. So I've got more freedom than what my nanny had, what my mum had. And as they've sacrificed their journey for me to have the life I have today.
Yeah.
And I'm in debit to them to a certain point.
Oh, I mean, definitely. I mean, I think we're all in debt in some way to them, and there's definitely some fascinating stories there, without doubt. Yeah. And I've always thought about that period of that first wave of immigration, people working and working together to kind of get through. Didn't know the language, didn't have much money, and they're working in some dangerous conditions, some of the men, on construction sites and factories, and somehow
no health and safety,
and they had to fight to wear a turban, and there's so many fantastic stories, but they persevered. We've got that character in us to carry on and keep going, and look at us now. We've got so many successful Punjabi and Asian businessmen and women, and doing so much work. And I nearly just said businessmen then. People are going to kill me who listen to this, aren't they? Typical man, ain't a Punjabi guy.
Business people.
Business people. And slip of the tongue, sorry. And but and we've come far, and you've come really far as well, Kalbir. You know what? Look, we're coming towards the end. I remember our last conversation, we spoke for an hour and a half, I think, as well, for ages, and it's an hour and a half now again. And but it's been really good catching up with you. And I've really enjoyed it. See how you've been. We haven't really spoken. I think we spoke once in between.
No, we've actually. I'd leave you voice messages. I've got a thing about voice messages. I'll leave voice messages.
You're another one. Everyone leaves me these voice notes. I think, oh God, and I've started doing them now. I've started doing them.
Oh, brilliant!
I've started.
Remember, I was the original gangster behind that.
You was. I said, what's this?
You leave you like a good 9-10 minute voice message, and you're probably getting on with your day and thinking, why is she leaving me a podcast and I'm listening to her?
Yeah, you leave the longest voice notes than anyone that I know. Right? And Hajar Bungle leaves very short, sharp, sweet ones.
Yeah,
I'll be there, or I'm okay. Yep, yours are very long, and I could
you can make a podcast out of them.
I could chop them up and put them into a show.
Yeah.
But look, it's been fantastic having you on. And but before you go, do you want to tell anyone where they can kind of follow your work and that kind of stuff?
Yeah. So on social media, you can find me on Kalbir Bains, as well as I've got a website, which is www.kalbirbains.com. You can reach out to me, check out some of the work the charities are doing, because I've got a page for them as well. And then the book, if anybody hasn't read it yet so far, it's called Not Our Daughter, The True Story of a Daughter-in-Law. You can get it on Amazon, Kindle's version as well. And then a percentage of that goes to the Sharan Project charity to support vulnerable women, which for me is a massive thing. And it's about, giving hope to women that aren't in the position that I'm in today. And then that's it. If anybody reaches out to me on social media, I do get back to you. Drop me a message. That's on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. Just call out to me.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're everywhere. And
everywhere.
On your book, did you ever have an audio book?
No. Do you know, that's one thing I wanted to get done. And also, but a lot of people.
Yeah, you should.
And a lot of people asked me to translate it in Punjabi.
Yeah.
Because especially for the immigration generation, they can relate to it because they've sacrificed and been through a lot of this. It's something I'm looking into and venturing into converting it into Punjabi.
Yeah, do it into Punjabi, definitely, but definitely do an audio book. And I think you should read it yourself.
Do you know what? That's funny. I've had a couple of people say that to me, and I will give it a go.
Yeah,
I'll give it a go.
I think because I think it'll be good. I think it'll work, and you reading it will definitely add to it, because I like the people writing the books do the audio books. I'm listening to one called The Moral Compass.
Right. Okay.
And it's about I think Mandeep Rai, Dr. Mandeep Rai, her name is. And
I actually know Mandy. Mandy's part of the Women of the Future Basta program. She's one of my colleagues.
And she's travelled.
She has
travelled the world, and she's used all their elements of the countries in morals.
She's a phenomenal woman.
Strength, and I've been listening to her. And I said I will read her book. I cheated and got the audio book, right? And it's on my mind. I was thinking that Kalbir needs to do an audio book as well.
Audio book, no.
This is fantastic. I'm working out, and
it's true, because you said, because I listen to a lot of your podcasts and other podcasts as well. When you're doing stuff like you're cracking with, even when you're writing, that's one of the things I like to do. Is I have a radio on or something even in the background. I need to podcast, whatever. That's what keeps you going. And you're right. If someone hasn't got the time to read it, is an element, and I will venture into that. I will. I'll reach out to even Mandy and actually ask her, because obviously she's, again, this is what I mean when I'm talking about that group of phenomenal women. She's one of them.
Right.
She's one of those women, and and it's genuinely giving each other. And she was, I don't know if you know that after my book Sat, I've come out into also another book called Voices of Punjab. She's one of the women in the Voices of Punjab with myself in there, and it celebrates 15 women that have gone and turned their lives around, and the struggles we've gone through. Either we're immigrants or women that have immigrated here in the UK, and the journey each one of us women went to. And you've got like people's like Sandip Verma, who's an MP, and advocates and supports the South Asian community. So that's another book I'd recommend people to go and check out, Voices of Punjab. Then again, been lucky enough and fortunate enough to be a part of Guru Gobind Singh Ji's journey. There was a book put together in the West Midlands collecting messages of for the 550 Prakash. So that's another book, some part of that. And then there's another one coming out next year. So I've been part of magazines and books and articles through other people. But another piece of my own work I'm working on something that'll be out soon. I'm not going to say when, but when I'm ready to launch it. But Mandy was part of that book called Voices of Punjab. So go and check that out. And that's by Anita Anand and Asima, the authors are. And again, they got a group of us women. And when you collaborate, you achieve so much. Today, even I'm cheering on women like that. And I'm saying straight away, as soon as you've mentioned her, what she's doing. And even through COVID, she's still been traveling. She's still been promoting her book as well, and it just shows you how different people can work together and come together. And that's how you get stronger as people.
I mean,
you're empowering each other.
Oh, definitely. I mean, once I've done this audio book, I think Dr. Mandeep Rai is coming on the show, and we're going to talk about her. And Mandy Singera, I think, hooked me up with her. So if Mandy Singera still doing that, still cheering me on.
She's amazing, Mandy. Mandy's always connecting people, and I haven't seen Mandy for the last couple of years, but I saw her at the ICRA Awards, which was it last year actually, last year when I saw her at the ICRA Awards. And when I see Mandy now, I'm almost catching up with her, because she's so much been out the country, because she's doing so many international projects.
She's always on
so she's on
Yeah, on
Yeah,
some
she's on the front
platform
line of
talking.
that.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
again, she's another person who gave me a lot of opportunities at the beginning. So do you know what I mean? And connecting myself with yourself and other people. And she was on my panel when I launched the book. So, you know, we need to celebrate those people. Never, when I won the Age Women Award, for me, I called out yourself, called out Mandy, called out everyone like that, you know, and all these opportunities come by remembering where those people have started you. So always remember to stay humble and say thank you to those people on your journey. Don't think you've done it by yourself, like I said again, and that's so important. Every one of those people have contributed for me to be where I am today. And you know, and I've had all these opportunities roll out and come out thanks to people starting off with Mandy Sangera, you know, and there was Polly, there was Jazz Saikon from Your Saheli as well. Do you know what I mean? And again, I shouted that to everyone when I got recognized for that award, because I wanted to go back to my roots and go, where did I start? It was these people behind the scene, but they've not got the recognition and people haven't seen them on the forefront, but they were there at the back. So you got to remember always to give everybody a thank you.
Yeah,
makes a massive difference. Yeah.
Well,
but no, thank you for having me on.
No, it's been fantastic. It's been great chatting to you. And when your new project comes out, your book, you've got to come back on.
Definitely.
Hopefully there's an audio book, so I don't have to.
Yes, it will be.
I'm getting very lazy.
I'm going to be working on getting this one into an audio book. Yeah.
Then I will 100% read it all or hear it all. And
yeah.
But you look, Kalbir, take care. Have a great evening, and we'll speak real soon. Thank you. Bye bye.
Definitely take care. Thank you. Let's get a picture quickly as well. Let me get a picture on my phone.